Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that I've seen people more divided over a game before. You got people that love it, people that hate it, people that are screaming it from the top of the hills. You got people that are calling it a $40 mod, and some people that are saying it's a blatant cash grab. But whatever it is, there is a wide spectrum of emotions and opinions around Elden Ring Nightreign. Some of it based off of things that a lot of you guys don't even know about. But it makes a lot of sense, because if you look at Nightreign and you look at Dustbloods, well, these two games, I mean, they look like a pivot from any FromSoft fan's perspective. And that's going to worry some people, especially with how successful they have been, incredibly successful that they have been over the last few years. These games have a lot of mechanics and a lot of themes that are completely foreign to the FromSoft formula. And we're talking about games that have massive, massive audiences. Elden Ring has a massive audience. Dark Souls has a massive audience. And a game like this is going to divide that audience. I've played it. I've had a lot of fun with it. But I have my fair share of criticisms and a lot of my concerns as well. But from an industry perspective, there's some things that are just so fascinating about this game. I mean, this is a non-live service multiplayer game coming from a AAA studio, and we just don't see that ever. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about some things that very few people know about with this game. I want to talk about what it is and isn't. I want to talk about the player reception around the game and what this game means for FromSoft's future. But before that, today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Rocket Money, the app that I use to pretend like I actually can keep my finances under control. Am I the only one that just waits for their card to expire to see all of their subscriptions get canceled because I can't keep track of them? You know, in college, I defaulted on multiple credit cards. It took me years to get out of that hole, just because I am really bad with paying attention to what's coming in and coming out of my accounts. I could have used an app like this sooner. And that's where Rocket Money comes in. It pulls together all of your subscriptions into one place and lets you cancel them with just a few taps. It also tracks your spending, sets budgets, and can even negotiate your bills. Basically, it does all of the financial adulting that I don't want to do. You can also set alerts for when your bills increase or when your account balance dips too low, so nothing catches you off guard. Over 5 million people have used Rocket Money, and they have saved their users over $500 million. So if you're tired of being surprised by charges that you forgot about, go to rocketmoney.com/legendary and try it out. It's free to start, and it can save you a lot. Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. I expected Elden Ring Nightreign to do well, but what I didn't expect is it hitting over 300,000 concurrent players on day one, holding steady throughout the weekend, selling over 2 million copies in just under 24 hours. That is a rare kind of launch, especially for a spin-off that is as weird as Elden Ring Nightreign, and especially given how mixed the feedback has been online. Critically, it's doing fine. It says 77 on Metacritic and 80 on OpenCritic. Steam reviews started out mixed, but then climbed up to mostly positive after a patch had fixed a couple of things, and the game had a little bit of extra time to settle. Not exactly a triumph in comparison to some of their other games, but it's nowhere near the disaster that some other people are trying to make it out to be. Actually, thinking about it now, I think the only reason why this game stands in such high contrast is specifically because of how successful FromSoft has been and how massive Elden Ring was. It's one of the most celebrated games in the past decade, reaching almost 30 million copies sold. Anything mixed or just all right is just going to look bad by comparison. At its core, Nightreign is still unmistakably FromSoft. The combat, the music, the boss design, the gear, the atmosphere, it all feels familiar, but layered on top of that are systems and ideas that for a lot of people feel like a betrayal. You have shrinking zone mechanics like Fortnite or Warzone. The pacing is faster. There's no fall damage. You can use spirit stream jumps to launch yourself across the map or ride on spectral hawks. Structurally, it's a roguelike boss rush with limited persistence, and that's a hell of a thing to attach to Elden Ring's name. So I get it, I really do. If you're someone who loves Souls games, if you associate FromSoft with tightly authored RPGs that reward slow, deliberate play, this game probably feels like it wasn't made for you. And the fact that it leans into these modern trends that have become synonymous with monetization, with live service burnout, with games that are chasing the market rather than leading it, well, that's going to set off some alarms. For a lot of players, Nightreign doesn't just feel unfamiliar, it feels like a warning. People see games like Nightreign or their upcoming game Dustbloods, and they start getting BioWare flashbacks, a studio that was known for deep character-driven RPGs, pivoting to shared world shooters, multiplayer experiments, or live service projects like Anthem that they have no business making. That pivot didn't just fail for those guys, it poisoned the well. It destroyed the studio and its reputation. So now, anytime any beloved studio starts reaching outside of their lane, people are bracing for impact because, well, we've seen how this story ends. So believe me when I say I understand the skepticism. This industry has trained us to be wary, trained us to see every creative pivot as a potential grift, and when you've been burned enough times, pattern recognition becomes a survival instinct. But I think that Nightreign, at least from a business and design standpoint, is wildly misunderstood. What most people don't realize, and FromSoft should have made this blatantly obvious, is that Nightreign isn't the standard FromSoft game. And I think a lot of us can tell that, but this game was not directed by Miyazaki. This game isn't a part of some grander vision. Well, I guess it kind of is in some ways, but it was a test, a low-stakes experiment that was led by Junya Ishizaki, a first-time director who quietly has been shaping FromSoft's DNA for over a decade now. He started as a level designer on the original Dark Souls back in 2011, then went on to be a level and battle designer in Bloodborne, and later the combat designer for Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring. Some of the most iconic encounters and mechanical highlights in the studio's industry, and he had a hand in all of it. Nightreign is his shot, a small-scale, controlled opportunity to take the reins and try something new. It reuses a ton of assets from the Soulsborne library, especially with Elden Ring. It was developed in under 3 years, and it was made on a shoestring budget compared to AAA standards, and it's $40 for a reason. If you guys take a step back for a second, everything about this project screams insulation, risk management more than anything else. A creative sandbox that was built with the quiet expectation that it might not do well. And the wild part is that Miyazaki more or less said this himself. In an interview with The Guardian last year, he openly admitted that they were preparing for failure and they were trying to build a culture that could survive it and learn from it. In an article from The Guardian written by Keza McDonald titled The Game Design Secrets of Elden Ring's Hidetaka Miyazaki, Keza interviewed Miyazaki on his design philosophy and the future of FromSoftware. She wrote, "Miyazaki is an extremely hands-on director, and all of his games bear the unmistakable imprint of his influence, but he has also been attempting to pass down his knowledge and artistic approach to others at FromSoftware in the 10 years that he's been its president, ensuring that they too have room to fail. Budget, scale, scope, everything has grown to the point where room for failure isn't tolerated as much as I think it was in the past," he told me. FromSoft has its own way of hedging risk, so to speak, and that most of our projects have a partner who's financing the project. From a business management perspective, we're not betting everything on one single project. At the same time, you have to find the right place to allow for failure. Whether it's smaller in scope or scale, or it's a smaller module of something bigger, there needs to be room for that. I think that's where a lot of young game directors will be challenged and be able to learn from it. Making sure you can understand and identify where those pockets of failure can be allowed is how you try to grow talent. Miyazaki views Elden Ring as a turning point for FromSoftware. Before and after Elden Ring, there's going to be a clear difference. You could see that with Armored Core 6, I would say. He hopes that we will soon be seeing games from other directors at the company, not just himself. Where FromSoftware is right now in terms of scale, I would say that Elden Ring is really the limit. We've tapped every resource and talent that we have to access it. Scaling it even bigger, I would have my concerns. Perhaps having multiple projects is the next stage, where some of the other younger talent can have the opportunity to manage and direct game design for a smaller project. I mean, you really can't get much more direct than that. When you line up Nightreign and Duskbloods right next to Miyazaki's own words, it all starts to click together, especially that one line. You have to find the right project to allow for failure, smaller in scope or scale, or a module of something bigger. I think that's where a lot of young game directors will be challenged and able to learn from it. That is not vague corporate speak. That is a roadmap, and FromSoftware is following it to the letter. Junya Ishizaki is that young game director. Nightreign is that smaller, self-contained project reusing assets from other games. Duskbloods, that upcoming PvEvP extraction game that FromSoftware is exclusively making for Nintendo, likely funded by Nintendo, is likely the larger vision here. One that borrows from what Nightreign has already tested, the zone closures, the co-op scaling, the faster travel, random gear. These games aren't random departures, they are sequential steps. And the funny thing is, this isn't even the first time that these guys have done it. It's just another step in their strategy. I think a lot of people completely missed that Armored Core 6, that game was just as calculated. Mech games were, and still are, relatively niche, so that game was going to be a gamble regardless of what they were doing. It was made with less than half the budget of Elden Ring. It was the first project directed by Masaru Yamamura, another long-time FromSoft dev that was stepping up to the plate for the first time. And while most people now see AC6 as a clear win, part of why it feels that way is because expectations were in check. Nobody was expecting that game to be the next Elden Ring, and most of that audience didn't even show up for it. That game sold around 3 million copies, not 30, but internally, it was likely considered to be a success. The risk was measured, the new director got his shot, and the studio proved that they could branch out without overextending. Say what you will about the end product of the strategy, but from a business perspective, this is some of the smartest project management that I have seen from AAA studios in years. Most publishers do not do this. They do not hedge. They go all in believing that the audience and the money is going to be there based on whatever their reputation is or whatever the industry trends are. These guys dive headfirst into brand new genres or live service pivots without any safety net. BioWare with Anthem, Rocksteady with Suicide Squad, Arcane with Redfall, Crystal Dynamics with Marvel Avengers, and it's not always live service games that are killing some of these studios. Sometimes it's just the scale, the pressure, or the wrong project at the wrong time. The pattern is always the exact same, though. A big bet, a big miss, and the fallout lands on the devs. What FromSoft is doing here isn't just cautious, it's sustainable. They're building a pipeline. And the smartest part about all of this is that it's the quiet admission that Miyazaki can't and shouldn't be at the center of everything forever. If this studio wants to grow, if their games are going to evolve, then that knowledge needs to be passed down. That trust has to be built. And like Miyazaki said, you have to carve out space for people to fail. That's not a strategy. That's leadership. Hell, it's the exact same kind of bet that they took on him back when Sony funded Demon's Souls. He was the guy that was just working his way up through Armored Core until somebody finally gave him a shot. Now he's doing the same thing for the next generation. That is not a step back. That is the clearest sign of a studio that's thinking long term. If you guys have watched this channel for any length of time, then you guys would know that my biggest criticism of AAA is a lack of strong leadership. And what they're doing right now over at FromSoft is building up strong leadership. They realize that they have it with Miyazaki, and they're trying to pass down some of that institutional knowledge, some of that skill to some of these other developers and some of these other directors so they can continue to make great games in the future. This is something that you just have to do. I've also told you guys, make sure you stop paying attention to the name of the game, stop paying attention to the name of the studio. Instead, start paying attention to the name of who is directing the games that you enjoy, because more times than not, those are the guys that have most of the influence in the studio. I mean, they're the director after all. They are directing all of these teams as one. And that doesn't mean that great directors can't fail. They definitely can, but these are the guys. Their leadership is what brings everything all together. Casey Hudson left BioWare after Mass Effect 3. Then we got Mass Effect Andromeda. Bruce Straley was a part of Last of Us Part 1. He was not there for Last of Us Part 2. That was all Neil Druckmann. World of Warcraft, Cataclysm, and then on. Completely different management structure, completely different leadership. That game changed forever. 9 times out of 10, when a game is failing to meet your expectations, or if it just feels different in general, the most jarring part is it's just the leadership that changed. Direction of the game changed. I highly recommend that people start looking into this because it's the best way to be a educated consumer. Well, I think that opinions are going to vary with Nightreign and also Duskbloods in the future. I have to respect the measured risk and growing talent from within. There's a quote that I grabbed from J.K. Rowling that says, "It's impossible to live life without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all. And in that case, you fail by default." FromSoft recognizes that they could just go make another Dark Souls, which they likely will in the future, but they need to experiment, and they need to give their junior talent, their junior directors, a shot if they're ever going to have any sort of a future as a studio. Because Miyazaki's not always going to be there, and he can't be a part of every single project. I think it's important to temper our expectations when it comes to some of these games. Things change, regardless, with any of these studios. Not every studio is going to nail it every single time. But I don't really think that Nightreign is necessarily a miss. I've played it. I've had a lot of fun with it. I definitely have some things that I have issues with, which we'll talk about. But I think that it represents something that I want to see more of in this industry, especially from AAA. And that's just multiplayer without live service, because it just feels right. I put a good chunk of time into Nightreign, and I think that I have seen most of what players have been praising and most of what they've been frustrated by. But I want to start this out by saying, damn, does this game feel good to play? The movement is so fluid in a way that FromSoft rarely embraces outside of Sekiro or Armored Core. The traversal is so fast and reactive. It's almost arcade-like in a lot of ways. Vaulting over walls and climbing over things is so much smoother after their latest patch, and there's just something so exhilarating about being this quick in a Souls game. Nightreign just kind of lets you go. And despite all the things that this game changes, it's still unmistakably Elden Ring. The world design, the music, the tone, the enemy variety, the combat, it is all here. Structures and spatial layouts that scream from software. And because most of that foundation is familiar, there's basically no onboarding learning curve here. If you have played Elden Ring, you can pick this up instantly. That instant familiarity is one of the game's biggest strengths. It lowers the barrier to entry without dumbing it down for anything. The core gameplay loop here is just fun, and in co-op, it really starts clicking together. Fully co-op boss fights with 2 other players, especially if you guys are actually in voice, especially if you have friends to begin with, shows that this kind of real-time coordination can actually work. One player can pull aggro, other players can hang back with range support, and roles will shift naturally throughout the fight. It's flexible, reactive, and it's way more satisfying than I expected. Honestly, it makes me believe that an Elden Ring style MMO might not actually be that crazy of an idea after all, because for the first time, it feels like an action combat system could actually support it. Now, I brought this up in my Lords of the Fallen video, and it's something I really liked about Code Vein 2, but I've always had a soft spot for these games that loosen up a little bit on the Souls formula, ones that let you breathe a little, games that don't demand your full concentration every single second that you're playing. Nightreign fits that mold. Faster pace, session-based, fully co-op, and it's built to respect your time without watering down the entire experience. I will also say that the progression system caught me off guard in a good way. I didn't expect much, but the way that the world evolves between runs adds genuine replay value here. Take down the first major boss, and suddenly there's a massive crater that splits the map in half. Harder bosses spawn inside of it. There's a secret upgrade that's waiting at the bottom. Other times, there's an entire scarlet forest that engulfs half of the zone, reshaping the landscape and throwing your entire route into chaos. What's nice is these shifts aren't just visual. They force you to reevaluate your pathing, rethink your objectives, and adapt your whole strategy. It's got that roguelike unpredictability, but with the kind of world-building weight that FromSoft normally brings to their games. And the Remembrance quests are genuinely cool. Not only are you hunting down these Night Lord bosses, but you're also chasing these character-specific quest lines to recover their memories. These unlock some of the best rewards in the entire game, and more importantly, they are the roguelike mechanics in a lot of ways. Each completed remembrance will give you a chalice. That chalice will let you customize your relic loadout. It's one of the few systems in the game that gives you some real agency during your run, and honestly, I think it's brilliant. Now, of course, I do have my complaints when it comes to this game, and the most baffling one of them all is how do you launch a co-op first game in 2025 without crossplay or even basic multiplayer features? What the fuck, FromSoftware? No in-game voice chat, no text chat. You can play solos or trios, but you can't play duos for whatever reason. That is a real problem because Nightreign demands coordination. Roles matter, bosses hit harder. You need to know where you're going, what you're doing, and what you need to get before your run ends. And without any real way to communicate, every single match with strangers is going to feel like a gamble. One game, everything's going to click. Somebody's marking the maps, calling the shots. You guys are having no problem clearing through the game. It's going to feel like a real co-op experience, but the next, all of a sudden, you're stuck with a team who's dying to low-tier mobs, and since players can respawn as much as they want until they die to the main boss, there's no fail state, there's no reset, you just waste your time. A simple voice or text chat feature would fix this, but without it, you're stuck. Now, speaking of knowing where to go and what to get while you're actually in a run, while some of Nightrein's more core features and systems are great, the actual roguelike systems on the map are incredibly weak. And look, roguelites are probably my most played genre. I have sunk countless hours into Risk of Rain 2, Hades, Balatro, Slay the Spire, and a long list of other games. And what makes those games click is how deliberate progression ends up feeling. Each run is a fresh start, and each choice that you make layers on top of a build. It's strategic, not just reactive. Take Hades as an example. You pick a weapon. After that, every single room is either going to offer you a god power, a passive bonus, or a currency. You make choices, re-roll, stack synergies, shape the run. The longer you go, the more tailored your build ends up becoming. It's not just about power, it's about expression. Nightreign doesn't give you that. It throws powers at you with no synergy, no pathing, and barely any control. It's random in the worst way, scattered, incoherent, disconnected from how you're actually playing the game. Yes, there's a map filter where you can go and hunt for specific weapons, status effects, flasks, and consumables, but that rarely clicks together. Most of what you're finding is just weapons. Carrying a few of them of the same type of passives will give you a slight boost to damage or status chance, but that's pretty much as far as that system goes. You might get an HP or FP boost or a stamina buff or one of those slow walking aura farming passives, but none of it actually ties back to a build in a meaningful way. Most of the build crafting in this game happens outside of the run rather than inside of the run, through relics and remembrances, both permanent unlocks. But that system is hidden behind FromSoft's esoteric world building and quest design. Most players are probably not even going to realize that there's a quest log in the Keep's journal. Most will assume that it's just lore and they're not really interested in lore, so they're not even going to take a look at it, and they're going to find out either through a YouTube video like this or they're going to search for it online, and that's the way that they're going to figure it out. If you never open that menu, you're going to have no idea that there's a whole layer of progression that's been tucked away. Now, once you're inside of a run, you're most likely just scavenging. Maybe you're going to find a weapon with the right element that you're looking for if it's on the map at the time, or if it's on the right path that you need for the rest of your team. You'll hit a few Shrines of Marika on the way, upgrade your flask, grab a couple of smithing stones or minor buffs if you can. None of it actually feels like you're building on your class or your weapon in a meaningful way. It's just a bunch of disconnected systems with no core loop that's holding it all together. And yet, despite all of that, I still enjoy playing the game. I really enjoy playing this game. The movement, the combat, the boss fights, the sheer speed of the game. There is real energy here. But what I think really holds this entire experience together, what makes Nightreign a good game to play, is the fact that it has Elden Ring in the title, because it's built reusing its assets and its world. The controls are sharp, the world is familiar, the core systems are still here, but that foundation is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. But Nightreign is exactly what it's supposed to be, an experimental title. FromSoft is trying something new on a smaller budget with a new director at the helm. And yeah, some of these parts are rough, extremely rough in some cases, but some parts genuinely shine. And for $40, fully co-op, no live service, no microtransactions, that kind of offering, especially from a studio of this size, is almost unheard of. Actually, I think it is unheard of. We have been trained to expect subscriptions, microtransaction loops, seasonal grinds. This is just a game, self-contained, earned, not bought. And it feels like something that we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, everything that you earn in Nightreign comes from actually playing the game. Imagine that. What a foreign concept that is. Skins, emotes, relics, chalices, they're all bought using Merc, the currency that you get by completing every single run. There's no cash shop, no option to buy your way through progression, no splash screens with limited time offers, no battle pass sitting in the corner like a ticking clock counting down your time and enjoyment. You just play the game and you get rewarded for doing so. And honestly, that alone feels great. I don't think a lot of these companies realize how much damage they have done to gaming culture, or maybe they don't even really care. The industry has profited immensely, sure, but I think that they've created a more cynical, price-sensitive, and hostile audience because of how they've monetized these games, and that's going to burn out. Nobody trusts these studios anymore, and I don't think that it's sustainable without balance and fair offerings. Nightreign is that fair offering, at least from my perspective. And that's how I hope people start to view it. While I understand people's concerns, whether it's about the direction, tone, or the shadow of Duskbloods looming in the future, Nightreign is exactly the kind of project that I want to see more of. A fully co-op experience, no live service, priced fairly, and built from the ground up as a complete experience. A decade ago, guys, this was the norm. We used to just buy expansions for $20. Multiplayer wasn't a feature to be stripped down and rebuilt as a monetization funnel. You played it because it was fun, not because you felt obligated, not because your season progress was about to expire. I want games to get back to that. I want studios to start treating their players like people again, and Nightreign, for all of its faults, gets that part right. FromSoft took an immensely popular IP, repurposed its assets, built something entirely new and distinct, and did it quickly, cheaply, and respectfully. It probably didn't cost these guys more than $50 million to make. I'd be shocked if it hasn't already paid for itself. And in doing that, they gave new talent, leadership experience, tested future mechanics, and gave their fan base something that they could just enjoy without a catch. I think this is a really tough one from both a player and a developer perspective, because these guys have enjoyed so much success over the past few years, insane success that we also got to experience because we got some great games that we got to play as a result of it. But these games are very different. This is foreign territory. And on top of that, this is more of like a AA offering from my perspective, not necessarily a AAA offering. And that's going to kind of shift perspectives a little bit on that. And there's going to be some players that are out there that genuinely do not want to see this game do well, or Duskbloods when that one releases. Because if they make money and they do well for multiplayer games, well, then maybe they're not going to want to make their single player games. And well, we don't want that. And that's something that we have seen 100 times in the past, which is a completely valid concern for people to have. But also, on the developer side, it must suck to build up this reputation, to put yourself in a place at the minute that you want to try something new, your audience wants to check you back in place. You know, from a business perspective, I am in awe at how controlled these guys are. Miyazaki laid the foundation for the concept phases of Armored Core 6, hands it off to a new director, lets that guy take control of it. Turns out to be an absolutely fantastic game, makes their money back. Bunch of praise from the audience as well as critics. Then he goes and he gives these assets off to this other developer, lets this guy make his little co-op game. Turns out pretty good. Players seem to enjoy it for the most part. They've already made their money back on it. They also now have a proof of concept for Duskbloods, because a lot of these features are going to be in there. And that game is fully funded by Nintendo because it's exclusive for Nintendo, which means there's no risk involved at all. All the while, they're still working on whatever game they're working on in the background, which is like the next Dark Souls game or something like that. These guys are sitting pretty. You got money in the bank. You got your junior leadership, a ton of experience over the past couple of years. You've released 3 games in succession. I mean, they've released a lot of games very, very quickly over the last couple of years. They've been fired them out, and most of them have been pretty high quality, which is definitely going to work to their advantage. But yeah, if anybody in this industry is worth any salt, I would be trying to emulate what this company is doing. Because even some of these games you're going to miss. It's just going to happen. It's just how it kind of goes more times than not. But either way, these guys are building themselves for the future, and I think it's going to work out for them. I really do. Historically speaking, looking at the way they've gone over the past few years, they've done pretty damn well, and I think they're going to continue to do well. But I've had a lot of fun playing the game. Honestly, I just like the act of actually playing the game, especially with friends. I played it with a few people from this community right here in the community Discord. There you go. I plugged the Discord today. I've played it with a little bit of friends. I've even shoved my way into some other Discords to find other people to play with as well, because I will not play this game random queue. Oh, God, it is bad. Whew. Save yourself some heartache. I'm going to tell you that right now. But I hope the game does well. I hope it continues to grow. I hope that people continue to enjoy it. And I hope they end up adding some content to it in the future. They've done pretty good with the patches and stuff for it so far. The patch that they made to the like the jumping mechanic to get up walls. I can't think of the name of it right now. Vaulting. That's what it is. They fixed it almost entirely. It's like perfect now. So they're pretty quick on the draw when it comes to those things. So I'm happy to see that. Outside of that, I'm done. All right. Stay cool. Stay righteous. Stay safe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on YouTube. I said it out of order. Follow me on Twitch. Follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to the video. Share it with your friends. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay cool. Stay righteous. Stay safe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Family, 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 family.